Okay, so let's look over the ragged arrays. Um, these are arrays that do not have the same number of columns. Okay, so remember that in our examples you have a 2 rows by 3 columns. So when you specify that, the columns is always fixed at that number of size. But sometimes you do have an array that 2D arrays that do not have the same number of column size. Like this example here. I mean, you cannot set it using code. Doing this way. Let's see if I go back here. So if you do if you do it this way, then you actually set in the size to be of 3 for the column, right? So it's always going to be 3. The only way to have a ragged array is to do it this way, and you can specify the number of columns at different size using this method to initialize your array. So for example, here you have an array of 5 rows, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the first column has first row has 4 columns, second has 2 columns, then 3 columns, 1, and then you have 0. Okay, so you have multiple or variable size in the columns. So you see this type of arrays is called ragged arrays. Okay, and then now how do you determine the length or the size of each of these rows? Columns in here for each row. Then that becomes important. So you need to make sure you actually looking at the correct row to get the column length or size. Okay. Whereas before, if you make the array has the same or fixed number of columns, then you can pick and choose any row. You can get the column length out of that. But in this way, that you want to check that the first row has that many columns, the second has many columns, and so on. Okay, so that's the only difference between the we call those like the not square arrays, but rectangular arrays versus a ragged arrays. Okay, so that's the only difference. The arrays class, so like strings, right? Arrays also has a class in Java, and you can use the arrays class to do certain type of manipulation to your arrays and some shortcuts, right? So last time we did like if you did like this sort, we had the bubble sort, the insertion sort, and so on. Now they have a built-in sort method. You can actually sort the arrays very quickly just calling this sort method here, and you have four types here, 4 of them. Well, the difference between the two here, the sort and the parallel sort, is they're exactly the same. They do the same thing here, except the parallel sort is a newer version. I think they introduced that into the Java 8 release, and to handle more complex arrays. I should say complex, I should say longer size arrays in terms of like millions of elements. Okay, so it's more efficient that way. So if you have an array that has, 1 million or 2 million array elements, then you want to use this parallel sort method rather than the sort. It's just faster. But they all do exactly the same thing. Okay, so arrays, you will use it by calling the arrays class dot method. And the reason why is because all these are static. If you remember these static methods, right? So static methods, methods or properties, you can call directly by referencing the array or the class name dot the method name or the variable name. Okay, you don't have to instantiate anything out of that. You just call it. So if you want to fill is a very very cool feature to populate your array instantly with a certain type of number or value. Just make sure that you have to use it this way. So arrays dot fill, and then you will supply the array name followed by the value you want to populate. I have here as it's incorrect. It was like this. Okay, this is incorrect. You cannot assign this to another variable here because it's a static array and it's void. It's a void type. So void type don't return any data. So you cannot do this, right? So you would create the array, to that size, and then call the fill to fill the array with that value. Okay, so in the code, if I want to, let's just say, let me turn this, well, yeah, let me turn this off for now. I'm going to comment these out, and actually all of these so we can create new arrays. So I want to say int of, again, just numbers, int if I want to supply the size, which is 100. Okay, and if you want to, if you don't populate this array, it's going to be zeros, right? Because the default values for if a variable name is always 0 for integer. If it's a string, it's a white space and blank space and so on. So if you want to change, if you want to assign a value instead of 0, then you can use the fill to quickly do that. I mean, you could loop it through, right? You can say for int, right? Int I 0 through I to the numbers dot length, okay, the I plus plus, and then you can say, let me put this brackets here, numbers of I is equal a certain value. You can say I plus 1 or something, right? Or maybe just like 12. Okay, if you want 12 to be the default number for all your arrays, then you do the loop this way, right? So you initialize it to be 12 instead of zeros, and if you print this out, you're going to see like 100 12s. Okay, so that's one way. Now Java has this built-in function that you can quickly do. You can say, now I have the array of 100 elements here, and you can just say arrays.fill. Fill what? Fill the array name is called the array numbers, and what's the value is going to be? Well, it's going to be like 42. Okay, just that. This is equivalent to this. Well, I mean, if I put 42 here, but if you put 12, then yeah, that's the same thing. So it's much shorter. It's built into Java, and you can just use it. Okay. Remember when you pass a method, you pass an array called numbers to a method, and if you modify the array elements in there, then it's going to affect the actual arrays, right? You pass arrays, you pass a reference to those methods. Okay, that's why when you print this out, you'll see that it's going to be different. So I could go here and say for int value in the numbers. Remember the hence for loop. Output the value. Put a space there. Okay. So if you do this, that's too many. Just put 10 is fine. You'll see they should have 12, number 12 in there. Run this. So see you have 10 12s in there. Okay. So if you do it this way, and let me now fill this with a different number. Let's put like 1. We'll call this function again down here to print the numbers. Okay, and well, before we do that, put the separation there. Okay, so you run this, you'll see that it has a different number now. So it's initially it was 12. We set it to 12. Run that. Output it. See 12. And next we fill it with the ones. And you print it. Now it's all ones. Okay, so it's much shorter. And if you want, you can actually, I think you can actually use this to do a random generator. You can randomize this, so you has a random number in there as well. So we have to fill. You have, if you want to sort the array, in a certain manner. You can also use a sort. Let's just say that I have an array. Let's just go back to the array here. So let me turn this on, the array of A2. Okay, so if you want to sort this, let's add some numbers in here. Let's just put 2, 44, and then 5. So if you output this in there, the A, let me turn this off. A2. Right, so if you run this, see that these are the values, the unsorted. And then now you want to sort that, so you can say arrays sort. Sort what? Sort the array A2. Okay, and then now, if you run this again, you'll see that it's not sorted. And let me just copy this, put it here. Okay, so unsorted, we saw the array, now it should be sorted. Okay, so you see that it's sorted automatically for us. So very quick way to do it. And you can also pick and choose. If you, by doing this, you're sorting the entire array. If I just want to sort, you know, this part, these 3 variables here, then you can reference the the position. So from the 0, from the 1 index to the 4 index, or actually 3 index. It only sorts those 3. It will leave the other unsorted. So you could say, I want to sort A2, but only from the second, actually from the 0, 1, from the first index to the 0, 1 to the 3rd index. Okay, so now if you run this, you see that it only sorts the 2nd and the 3rd and 4th elements. It leaves the first one and the last one unsorted. Okay, so you can pick and choose which part of the array you want to be sorted. So that's pretty neat. So the parallel sort is the same thing. You could say parallel sort, and it should still have the same. Did I misspell? Parallel sort. Let's see. Parallel sort. Oh, big S. Okay, so parallel sort, you get the same thing. It's exactly the same. So we still sort the array from index 1 to index 3. Okay. All right. So the next part, Arraylist class. This is a more advanced feature, so I'm not going to discuss much about it. But I just want to tell you that this is one of the classes that you can use if you want to have dynamic resizable arrays. Okay, so notice that when you create your arrays, you always specify the size of the array. Once you specify it, it's fixed. You can't change it, right? So if your array size of 10, you will pretty much max out at 10. You cannot go more than that. You can't reduce it either. You're max at 10. It's fixed. But this is for if you want to have a resizable array size. You can change the size. You can remove. You can change it. If you want to add more to it, it will keep growing or shrinking based on the methods you use. So it'll be very similar to what's called a list. If you remember, if you take Visual Basic, it's a list. You can delete it from the list, add item to the list, and so on. Okay, so so you can declare the array using the angle brackets instead of the square brackets. Okay, so if you can say array of type integer called this one here, error name, and then new integer that, and you can specify the length in here if you want. If you don't, that's fine too. You can leave it open. Okay, and you have these methods to use. You can add, remove, and so on. So I'm just to quickly do an example. Let me again just comment these out. So let's go to the top. Up here, you can say array list, and if you want to be integer, notice these are object only. You cannot use the primitive data type here. If you want to be an integer type, you have to use the capital I, the whole word integer here. Okay, nums equal to new array list, and then integer type, and then you call the constructor. Okay, then you have to load that class called Arraylist class, just like you did with the scanner. So you import this array list at the top. So now nums is array, it's a list. And now when you add arrays to the list, items to the list, you don't do this. You can say you cannot reference it by the index number, okay, because it's an object. So you would say add. You call the add method add number 12 to it. Okay, so notice I don't specify the size here. It knows that when I add this, it's going to add 1 to it, 2 to it, and so on. So I could, do this and add, 12, 3, 4, 4, 5. So I have added 4 elements. Okay. And then when you want to print it out, you would use nums.get the index of 0. So because objects, right, you use class and methods to get them, you don't say nums bracket 0. Okay, so it's like the objects of classes, like a student.get whatever it is. So you get the first index will be 0, and if I print this out, it should print out the number 12. Okay, so let me print this up. So it prints 12. It gets a 12. If I want to print the fourth element here, it'll be 0, 1, 2, 3, index of 3, and that will give me 45. Okay, so a size of that. And if you want to know the size, then just basically call the size method. It will tell you that the size will be 4 because it has 4 elements. Okay? And I have 4 here, and then now I want to remove one of them, so I can say nums.remove. Remove the second element, which is 23, that's index of 1. I remove that, and now the size, you'll see that has been shrunk to, so the first will be the 4, and then now it will be 3. Okay, so it's 4 and then 3, because we reduced that by 1. So the size is variable. You can add and or delete data from the array this way. So it's very efficient if you have a program that you want to add or remove data from a list. Okay, so it's much better this way than the other arrays. Okay, so that's all I want to use this time to talk about this type of array. Again, the integer type, you can use string, put a string here. Just remember that this has to be object type. You cannot use the int or the double or like that. So if you use double, you have to use a capital D because it's a class for double. And then now this will be like double type, right? If we use and so on. Okay, so the capital D is a class. Again, that's the convention of classes, right? It's capital D's. All right, so how much time do we have left? Okay, 15 minutes. So these are other methods you can use. The last part here is enumerations here. So enumeration is a special data type. It's a class in Java that allows you to set certain constants in the list so that you can use it in your program. Okay, this is how they all started back before we have classes in programming languages. So we have this enumeration methods of how to create certain type of constant to use And then, so actually object-oriented is derived from enumerations because it works very similar to a regular class. Okay, so you declare the enumeration type only in the class space. Okay, you cannot declare in the local space, meaning they cannot exist inside a function, but they be outside of it. And then you have to use the keyword enum, and followed by a curly braces, and in here you put your constants. Okay, and each element in the enum is a constant. For example, here you have so I mean traditionally you do this way. So you want to say a constant for Jan will hold a string of Jan and Feb and March, April, and so on, right? This is fine. You know, we've done that. We use that for pi, and will be different value, but you can set different value as well. So Jan has different value, Feb has and so on. So when you call it, you can just reference this variable name. It has the value of January. It's like, why would you do that if you can do using the enum here? Okay, so all of these here, all these 12 lines of code can be replaced with a single line of code this way. Okay, so now I can reference the January just by calling creating a object type of month. So this month here is this month here, right? So enum of month, and the name of this variable looks just like a class name because this is a class. Okay, so now I have a special month variable of type month, which is enumeration here, and then I can assign the value to this month. Okay, the month Jan, like that. So month.Jan, month.February, grab the actual, you actually call the constant, but it's also the value of that as well. Okay, and these are useful for things like when you have something that you use, it's always stay constant this way for names or like directions, north, east, south, west. Okay, you can use that as well for certain other data types. So, okay, well, yeah, I'm not going to, again, go much into this example here, but so this is, again, a precursor to the classes, but I want to talk about the assignment before we end the class today. So, the assignment here, so again, I gave you 2 weeks to do this assignment, and I hope you have fun with this project here. And it deals with the two-dimensional arrays. Okay, so I'm going to click this link here to load that specs, and you are going to create an application. Let me just end this.